You think you know wrestling families? You know the McMahons, the Harts, the Rocks family, right? Their names are literally everywhere. Their stories told so many times they've become wrestling myths. But what if I told you that for 30 years, another family secretly built a wrestling kingdom that dominated an entire section of Texas? An empire built not on TV deals, but on pure grit and insane political power. This isn't just a story about some small wrestling company. Texas is so huge it had multiple wrestling territories, and while everyone knows the Von Erichs basically owned Dallas, the Funks owned the West. This is the insane story of how Dory Funk Sr. and his sons used their unbreakable grip on the Texas Panhandle to create a wrestling empire nobody talks about. Until now. Forget what you think you know about wrestling families. This is the story of the Funk Empire. The story of the Funk Empire starts with this guy, Dory Funk Sr., born in Indiana in 1919. Long before he was a promoter, Dory Funk was an absolute monster. A legit beast, forged in the toughest wrestling rooms in the country, he was a 3-time high school state champion and a champion at Indiana University. And this wasn't the fake stuff. This was real, painful, competitive wrestling. That insane toughness would become his trademark for life. After serving in the Navy in World War II, he came home and got into pro wrestling. In 1949, he showed up in Amarillo, Texas, and saw a huge opportunity. He staged the first pro wrestling show the city had seen since before the war. Wrestling was officially back in Amarillo, and Dory Funk was the guy who made it happen. But he didn't just wrestle there, he became a local legend. From 1950 to 1953, he was the coach at the local boys' ranch, giving kids structure and discipline. He was building a reputation not just as the toughest guy in the ring, but as a man who commanded incredible respect. In that ring, his credibility was on another level. He won a crazy number of titles, including the NWA World Junior Heavyweight Championship. He held the regional North American heavyweight title an unbelievable 17 times, making him the undisputed king of the area. He even teamed up with legends like Lou Thez. But one single, brutal match type would make him a legend: the Texas Death Match. The rules were savage, no rules, and the match only ended when one man was pinned and couldn't answer a 10 count. Dory Funk Sr. didn't just compete in these matches, he perfected them, becoming the king of the Texas Death Matches. The legend says he had an undefeated record of 250 wins and 0 losses. Whether that's 100% true or not, the message was clear. Dory Funk Sr. was the toughest man alive. That terrifying reputation was the foundation for everything. So how did they build this empire? First, you have to understand the National Wrestling Alliance. The NWA wasn't one company, it was basically a cartel. Think of them like mob families, each controlling their own city. They all agreed on one world champion who traveled to their territories, and in return, they promised not to run shows in each other's territory. It was a system that protected everyone's business. The key moment for the Funks came in 1955. The Amarillo territory was sold to a guy named Doc Sarpolis. Sarpolis knew Dory Funk Sr. was a megastar, so he immediately offered Dory a chance to buy into the company, making him a partner and the lead star. This partnership was the beginning of the entire empire. For years, Dory Sr. was the face of the company, defending his home turf against the biggest names in the world. He was so respected that people thought he would become the NWA World Champion, but behind-the-scenes politics gave the title to Buddy Rogers instead. It was a huge lesson in power, but it didn't stop them. The Amarillo office got so powerful that Sarpolis was even elected NWA president in 1962. Funk and Sarpolis were the perfect team. Funk was the star and the booker. Sarpolis was the businessman. Together, they ran shows across Texas, New Mexico, and Colorado. They created their own hard-hitting style of wrestling and even built a pipeline for new talent, finding future megastars like Stan Hansen, Tully Blanchard, and Bruiser Brody. Then, in 1967, his partner died. So Dory Funk Sr. bought all the remaining shares of the company from his widow, taking complete ownership of Western States sports. The Funk family now owned everything. For the next 6 years, Dory Sr. ruled his territory with absolute power. He had built the castle. Now his sons were about to take over the throne. This is where the empire gets even bigger. Dory Sr.'s sons, Dory Jr. and Terry, step into the family business, creating a powerhouse that would take over wrestling. First came Dory Funk Jr. He was a football star before his first match in 1963. Dory Jr. was a wrestling genius, a master technician. He perfected his skills all over the world, from the US to Japan, developing his signature moves like the spinning toe hold. His rise was insane. On February 11, 1969, Dory Funk Jr. defeated Gene Kiniski to become the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. This was the biggest prize in all of wrestling, and now it belonged to the Funk family. It wasn't just a belt, it was the ultimate power move. With Dory Jr. as champion, the entire wrestling world now revolved around Amarillo, Texas, and he held that title for 4.5 years. That is still the second longest reign in the history of the championship. He defended the belt against every major star on the planet, making the Funk name famous worldwide. 2 years after Dory Jr.'s debut, his younger brother Terry joined the business. And if Dory Jr. was the cool, calculating scientist, Terry was pure chaos, a wild brawler. The two brothers were the perfect combination. They were an amazing tag team, and as single stars, they were the two biggest attractions in the territory. But right at their peak, tragedy struck. On June 3, 1973, just weeks after Dory Jr. lost the NWA title, Dory Funk Sr. died of a heart attack at just 54 years old. He literally died while showing a guest a wrestling hold. He lived and breathed wrestling until his final second. He had already left the company to his two sons. The architect was gone. Now the heirs had to rule the kingdom all by themselves. If you think this story is crazy, smash that subscribe button because you have no idea what's coming next. By the end of the 1970s, the entire wrestling world was changing. The NWA territory system, which seemed like it would last forever, was starting to break down. Cable television was coming, and it was a huge threat to their business model. The old promise between promoters not to compete? It was completely falling apart. For the Funk brothers, the challenge was massive. They were trying to do everything: run the company, manage the money, and still be the top wrestlers every single night. But by 1980, ticket sales in their territory were crashing. The gritty wrestling style of Amarillo was losing to the flashier stuff happening elsewhere. The end happened incredibly fast. In 1980, Dory Jr. and Terry did the unthinkable. They sold the family business their father built. They hoped new owners could save it, but the business was changing everywhere. In 1981, Western States sports shut down forever. Just like that, the Funk empire in Texas was gone. But this is not the end of the story. For Terry Funk, this was the beginning of something even crazier. While Dory Jr. became a world-famous trainer, teaching future legends like Kurt Angle and Edge, Terry adapted to the new era of wrestling in the most extreme way possible. Terry's greatest reinvention happened in the most insane place: a tiny, violent wrestling promotion in a bingo hall in Philadelphia called ECW. He showed up and won a brutal Texas death match, the exact same match his dad made famous, for a whole new generation of fans. Terry, who was already in his late 40s, embraced the hardcore style and gave the new company instant credibility. His fights against guys like Cactus Jack and Sabu were legendary. And then, on April 13, 1997, at ECW's first ever pay-per-view, a 52-year-old Terry Funk won the ECW World Heavyweight Championship. He was the oldest champion ever and the first person in history to hold both the prestigious NWA World title and the renegade ECW World title. The man from the old school family had become the king of wrestling's most violent revolution. So, the physical empire in Texas is gone, but the Funk legacy is everywhere in professional wrestling. It's a legacy of toughness, of changing the game, and of survival. Dory Funk Sr. was the mastermind. He was a pioneer who built a kingdom out of nothing in the middle of Texas, creating a style of wrestling so tough that it produced a crazy number of future superstars. Dory Funk Jr. was the Empire's champion. His historic reign as NWA World Champ made the Funk name world famous. But his biggest legacy might be as a teacher. Through his funking conservatory wrestling school, he has passed down the family's secrets to countless future world champions. And Terry Funk? Terry became a living icon. He was the ultimate survivor. He went from a classic champion to a WWF villain to the hardcore hero of extreme championship wrestling. He took the spirit of his dad's Texas death match and unleashed it on a generation of fans who wanted pure chaos. He proved a Funk could dominate in any era of wrestling. When you talk about wrestling families, we always focus on the big corporate ones, but the Funks were something totally different. They were the heart of the old territory system, a time when wrestling was built on real toughness. While the Von Erichs were rock stars in Dallas, the Funks were the undisputed kings of a different kind of Texas wrestling. Their influence stretched from the NWA all the way to the blood-soaked rings of ECW. The empire is gone, but the legacy is forever. From one man building an empire in Texas to his sons becoming world champions in the biggest promotions on earth, the Funk family ruled their part of the world with an authority almost no one has ever matched. You might know the names McMahon and Hart, but I'm telling you, for a generation of wrestlers and fans in West Texas, the only name that mattered was Funk. What is the craziest Funk family moment you've ever seen? Was it Dory Jr.'s legendary championship reign, or Terry's insane hardcore wars in ECW? Let me know in the comments down below. And for more insane wrestling stories you've never heard before, subscribe right now.